I was diagnosed with COVID on April the 6th, and actually my symptoms started about 3 or 4 days prior to that. I thought I had the flu. It was not the flu. I got my COVID test, it came back positive, and I tried to stay at home for as long as I could to handle my symptoms, and probably a week later I started getting worse. I started having some shortness of breath. My oxygen levels were lower. As far as stamina-wise, I could not walk literally from my bedroom into my bathroom without just being short of breath, couldn't catch my breath. And I realized that I probably needed a little bit more help, even though I didn't want to accept it. I'm a nurse, and nurses are very hard-headed, but I had a lot of good friends at that time that were very pushy and basically said, "You're going to the hospital." There's a lot of things I don't remember from the first day that I got admitted into the ER. Found out that I did need to be admitted, and so I was admitted on the RCU unit, which obviously I'm over that unit, so I had my staff. They kind of bombarded me when I got in there, just going to town, taking care of me, getting me the things I needed, getting me oxygen, seeing doctors, and treating me, just as compassionately as they could. You could tell they were all very scared, as was I. I didn't have my family around, which was very emotional for me because I have a very big family. We were very close. I knew they were worried, I was worried. I was seen by Dr. Serena, and I really didn't realize how serious it was. I think a lot of it was because my oxygen levels were so low, and I'm thinking like I'm okay, I'm fine. I really don't need to be here. And it really hit me when he came in and saw me, and he just told me that I had failed outpatient treatment, and he said, "At this point we're going to do everything we can for you, but I can't promise you that it's going to work." He said, there is a very good possibility that you're probably going to be intubated before the morning time. Dr. Megan McClellan, who is a godsend, literally saved my life. She's incredibly smart. She does a lot of research, and so there were some things that we discussed in her time in my room that she wanted to try with me that had not been tried with other patients. And it's just simple things like steroids. I had Dr. Smith. He came in and Dr. Smith saw me, and he and I kind of went back and forth about, I wanted to go home. He wasn't sure that I needed to go home. In the end, I won that battle, and I did get to go home with a bunch of promises. Nobody wanted to come get me and take me home. They wouldn't let me drive my own car home. So I had another employee that volunteered to take me home, and she dressed out in COVID attire, and she took me home, and she got me in my house and got me settled. I was isolated for 6 weeks by myself because at that moment in time, nobody knew. COVID was so new. Nobody knew what would, how long you could be contagious or things of that nature. So I was home by myself for 6 weeks. I was on oxygen for 2.5 weeks. Finally was able to get off oxygen and, tried to build myself back up. My stamina was, I couldn't do anything. Literally walking just from one end of my house to the other was like running a marathon for me. I had to see a cardiologist after. I had to have a workup with that because we had issues with my heart rate being lower or being higher, and there was no consistency with it. And then I just felt literally like a 34-year-old person, but in a 90-something-year-old body. I still struggle with some lingering effects from COVID, from time to time, some physically and then some mentally. I have chronic fatigue, I have insomnia. I have a problem with brain fog and remembering things. Concentration is really hard for me. From the aspect of a patient that had COVID and had it pretty severe, I was counting down the days until the vaccine came. And that is because I actually had COVID, and I was, like you said, I could have died from it. I went through an array of symptoms that I never want to go through again. So when I found out the vaccine was coming, I knew I was going to get it immediately. And that's because I knew that I didn't want to get COVID again. I didn't want to go through the experience that I went through in April with COVID. And also because I didn't know if I were to contract COVID again, if I would survive the second time. I think the best way I can answer it from a healthcare provider standpoint is we have seen so much death. We have seen so many people that are so sick that are just begging to be able to see their families one more time, talk to their families one more time, stop struggling to breathe. That makes such an impact on you in your mind. There are times that I still can lay down at night and still hear these people saying that, or see these faces of these patients, especially since this surge has happened. And I wish everybody could see that. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions and thoughts on the vaccine, but also I think it's just a form of compassion and kindness for your fellow human, your fellow person. You might be young, or you might be 70, and you might get the virus and you might not have any symptoms, but that doesn't mean that the next person that's not going to contract it isn't going to have symptoms. Because I was 34 years old, and I never would have thought that I would have, my body would have reacted the way that it did with COVID. I never would have thought that I would have been 34 years old, home in my bed on oxygen, and couldn't walk 10 feet in front of me without getting short of breath. From all the physicians that I've talked to, I have not talked to one yet that has said that you should not get the vaccine. If the physicians thought that it was not going to be effective, or it's a hoax, or it's whatever by whoever, I don't think they would be getting it. My whole family's vaccinated, by the way, and I think seeing that, how it affected me from that aspect, that really pushed them to get it, because they personally were affected by it. Not just me personally, but they were, because they had to watch me and still have to watch me struggle sometimes. And so I think that really changes people's minds.